Busy with Prince Charles yesterday.
I was busy with.
Why not today us?
Well, exactly. I'm moving in the same circles with people of nobility, whether that's title or inclination. Thank you very much for all of you for taking the time to join us here today. And what I'm proposing to do is I'll begin and I'll have an opening statement, and then I'd be delighted to open up for some questions. We also may want to take some pictures afterwards if that's something you would like to do. I'd be more than pleased to accommodate you in that regard. First of all, thank you all for taking the time to be here once again. And Sukhminder, it's great to meet with you and your colleagues here at Queen's Park. It's a pleasure to speak with you. Somebody once said that a pleasant meeting with the press is like picnicking with a tiger. You might enjoy the meal, but the tiger always eats last. So let me just say thanks for being here today, and I hope that you've already eaten. The Punjabi Press Club does a wonderful job of keeping people informed on the issues both here in Ontario and back in India and Pakistan. Thomas Jefferson, the great American statesman, once said, "If I had to choose between a country with a government or a country with newspapers, I would choose the country with newspapers, but I would insist that all people receive those and read them." And it's never been more important than here and now, in an age of constant change, in an era of a globalized economy, that our citizens are engaged and informed. They're trying to understand what events in other parts of the world mean to them here at home, in addition to the responsibility that you have to help them understand municipal issues, provincial issues, and federal issues. They're now looking for some assistance with respect to understanding how they position themselves, where they find themselves in an era of a globalized economy. So the work that you do has never been more important, and I thank you for doing that. You're also business owners. You're helping to drive the economy, and I thank you for that as well. You're adding to our prosperity, and we need your contributions today more than ever. Ontario is enriched in every way by our Sikh community. I have always been impressed with how the Sikh community encourages giving back and helping those in need. You may know that last month I visited the Save a Food Bank. I saw firsthand how the community, I was especially impressed by young people, are working to help those in need. And at Vaisakhi events, I see the core values of Sikhism in action: truth, compassion, contentment, humility, love. Right? It's inspiring to see those values passed down from one generation to the next. Whenever I have the opportunity to speak to the Sikh community, I always thank, congratulate, and celebrate parents and grandparents for assuming their responsibility. I speak as a father of four. It's not an easy thing to raise a family today. But to pass on your faith and traditions, that's even a bigger challenge. And when you do that, that's not just good for Sikh families. It's good for Ontario at large. So I encourage and thank parents and grandparents for taking on that responsibility. The Sikh community is helping to strengthen Ontario socially and economically, and I'm very grateful for that. And on the matter of the economy, I'm pleased to report our economy is gaining forward momentum. We grew faster last year than projected, according to Statistics Canada. We've regained all the jobs we lost during the recession, and we're creating more, over 120,000 more new jobs last year. We know that our work is not done yet. It's no secret that the international credit rating agencies are watching us closely and showing concern. We understand that. Ontarians, too, are concerned about the deficit, and they understand the need for us to take action. It's not going to go away on its own. We need to do something about it. Taking strong action to balance the budget by 2017, 2018, and to grow our economy at the same time. Along the way, we're going to protect the gains that we've made in services that matter most to families. We knock on doors, people all say the same thing. Make sure the schools are in good shape for my kids. That represents hope for me and my family. And make sure that if we need health care, it's there for us as well. Those are their top priorities. We will protect those. Our choice, one choice that we'll continue to make is to help newcomers reach their full potential. So, for example, we've committed $30 million to Ontario's bridge training programs. This school year, we're investing close to $67 million in language programs, helping more than 120,000 people. We've committed more than $5 million to our newcomer settlement program. Of course, we'd like to do more. You may know Ontario is the #1 destination in Canada for immigrants, but you may not know we're the only province without an immigration agreement with the federal government. We think Ontario should have a bigger role and more say in immigration in our province, and we are working to make that happen. Given that more than 1/2 of all the money that we spend in government goes into compensation for people who work for us, teachers, doctors, nurses, environmental inspectors, and the like, given that more than 1/2 the money goes into compensation, our plan, our budget addresses labor costs too. You may have heard we're in negotiations with our teachers and our doctors. We've made it clear. Our choice is to protect public services by holding the line on pay. And our reasoning is simple. Given the limited amount of money available, better to put it into things like keeping class sizes small, expanding full-day kindergarten, maintaining Canada's shortest surgical wait times, expanding home care for our parents and grandparents. Better to put it into those things than into pay increases. What we're saying to teachers, doctors, public servants generally, we need to hit the pause button for 2 years. Right? That's what we need to do. Eliminating the deficit is a big job. Getting it done will take resolve and an unwavering commitment and working together. One of the advantages Ontario enjoys in an era of globalization, of course, is the diversity of our people. Here in Ontario, we understand every market, we have ties to every global community, and we can communicate with any customer. To help increase trade between Ontario and South Asia, I've led 2 trade missions to India and Pakistan. I saw for myself, experienced for myself, the generosity of the Punjabi community, a spirit of giving that has also found a home in Ontario, making our province a better place to live. You know, as Premier, I have the privilege of traveling abroad. And one of the highlights of my life, for me and Terry, will always be when we visited the holy city of Amritsar and we visited the Golden Temple. And they gave Terry, my wife, an opportunity to help make chapatis, exactly. And that was a very moving experience for us to be able to be involved in that. And we look forward to returning again as part of our plan to continue to grow our economy. And one of the things that you come to understand, the more you travel, if you were to knock on 100 doors in India and Pakistan, where the Punjabi community, the Sikh community makes itself a home, and you were to ask those people with the greatest stake in the future, mothers and fathers, what are the most important things to them? You'll get the same answers there as you'll get here. They'll say, I need good schools for my kids. I need good health care for everybody in the family. I need a safe and I need a strong community. I want to live in a world that's at peace. And they'll say, I need a strong economy that creates good jobs. Those exact same hopes and aspirations that we have here as people have over there. So we might like to think we're different, but at heart, we have the same human ambitions and aspirations. And it's important in positions of leadership that we remember that and recognize that. We know that our population is diverse. What a lot of Ontarians don't know is how diverse our economy is. You may know we have North America's biggest auto sector. You may know we have the fastest growing clean energy sector. You may not know we have the biggest mining sector in North America. You may not know we have the biggest agricultural business in Canada. You may not know we're in the top 3 in all of North America in the film industry, in information and communication technology, in biotechnology. You probably have heard Canada's banks are regarded as the best and most stable in the world. You may not know that our financial services sector now employs 358,000 Ontarians. Right? That's economic diversity. My friends, let me conclude by saying this. We will eliminate the deficit. We will grow confidence in our economy. We will create the jobs our families need and deserve. And we'll do this not only for our benefit, but for the benefit of our children and grandchildren. And if ever you and I need inspiration, I just think of my mother and father and the work that they did and the sacrifices they made to raise their 10 children. It wasn't always easy, and from time to time they had to do things that were hard, but they did whatever they needed to do to give us all the opportunity that we needed. And I sense the same sense of responsibility and hopefulness in the people of Ontario. Thank you. I'd like to open up for questions.
It'll be symbolic, so you know the issues that behind our desks that we're trying to find out more information on it.
Yes.
So brief as possible at this point, so we can get most of the questions in.
If you try to keep the questions short, I will try to keep the answers short. That's a bargain.
Well, during the last election campaign, one issue and appeal came almost in every press conference, that was the insurance rates. We saw government is trying to do something about it, which is more like a politics, less than talking about reducing the premium. What is your government plan to do in your mandate now, which is third mandate, in order, because people are suffering?
Right. Insurance premiums have gone up overall by less than 12%. Just by way of comparison, the NDP were in government for 5 years. Their insurance premiums went up by 26%, right? 5 years, 26%. 9 years, 12%. All right. So I think it's important to remember historically where we've been here. We worked very hard every year to ensure that insurance premiums go up at less than the rate of inflation. In fact, in the last quarter, overall insurance premiums did something extraordinary. They went down. Not up, they went down. A little bit, but at least they went down. We think one of the biggest problems associated with insurance premiums as a cost driver is fraud. So we've set up an anti-fraud task force. We've had them report to us, give us some recommendations, and we look forward to acting on the basis of those. I know there are challenges. People are always concerned about their auto insurance. It's something that is required by law. And anytime we require people to do something by law, and there's a cost associated with that, we want to be very, very careful about how we manage those costs. We've done some work. There's more work to do. I'm proud of our record in comparison to what's happened under other governments.
We are paying the highest fees in this country. And you know very well that there are lots of riots going on in Ottawa and Montreal. We are scared that a place where highest fee is being paid by the students. How do you look upon the students over here in Toronto?
My grandmother was married at 16. She married a man who was 32. They both had their grade 8 education. My father did something that was unusual for him, McGinty. He finished high school. Me and my 9 brothers and sisters have all found success, each in our own way. And me here, sitting before you as Premier, as I like to say, of the greatest province of the best country in the world, because I had access to quality, affordable education. So, what we've done just recently, you may know, it's the single biggest new investment we're making. We're reducing tuition fees by 30%. We have a tuition fee grant for our low-income and middle-income families. That started last year, and this summer, for the very first time, families applying to college and university can apply for this tuition grant. So we understand that there's an issue associated with the cost of education. We understand that we have a shared responsibility to make sure all our children from all our families can afford to do that. If our kids do well, we do well. It's a matter of enlightened self-interest. That's why the single biggest new investment we're making as a government is in reducing tuition fees for middle and low-income families. 30% tuition grant. Yeah.
Next question.
In everybody, not in Ontario, but I say in the world.
Yes.
But I'm talking about our province.
Mm-hmm.
Though it is a global issue, the prices are raising every day. But across the border, the prices are always less than us. Actually, I have learned about them that there is some provinces have done a restriction on the wholesale companies not to retain it. But in our province, 10 years back, there were small people who are running individual gas stations, and they are competing, but they have been eliminated by these companies. Is there any chance that these people can be warned that they should not do retain, and the individuals can make it, so there is a competition, and then the prices can be lowered? What do you say about that?
Well, I think it's very important that we have a healthy, competitive environment when it comes to retailing gasoline. Competition drives prices down. The federal government is responsible for competition. Where we have an option as a government, and it's an option we have not exercised, is to regulate the price of gasoline. They've done that in a few provinces in the Maritimes, in the East Coast. But if you take a look at the overall pricing for jurisdictions where they have regulated pricing, overall, those people tend to pay more. Now, they don't have the ups and downs, but at the end of the year, they will have ended up paying more for their gasoline than we will have here in Ontario. Now, as leaders, right, we want to step up for a moment, and we want to understand what's going to happen to our children and grandchildren when it comes to gasoline prices. I think that what's going to happen over time is that the price of oil and gas is going to keep going up. I think we understand that. Pretty well every year, these prices keep going up. But there's something exciting that's also happening. The price of technology, right? This equipment, television sets, computers, Blackberries, cell phones, every year, those prices keep coming down and down and down. That's why I'm proud here in Ontario, we've got the most aggressive plan in all of North America to harness power, energy from the sun and the wind. Right? Doesn't cost us anything to take from the sun. Doesn't cost us anything to take from the wind. Now we've got to convert that into energy, into electricity. There's a cost associated with that. Those costs today are higher than it is to burn coal, for example. It costs more than gasoline. But we know that every year those prices are coming down. So where does hope lie for our children and grandchildren? Because it's very hard for us to regulate prices when we're gasoline and oil prices, when we're shipping that, we're receiving that from around the world, and there are global prices. I think hope comes from in pursuing alternative sources of energy as well. Thank you.
Premier, Mr. Baldry.
Thank you. Mr. Premier, many of us in the Punjabi Press Club are also involved in community grassroots organizations. As such, we are aware what issues are important to the Sikh community and what issues the Sikh community would like the government to address. As you are aware, Sikhs in Ontario have been meeting with many MPPs and government officials for a very long time to obtain the right to ride a motorcycle with a turban in Ontario. A right that is granted in British Columbia, Manitoba, the UK and many other countries in the world. During the last provincial election, on at least 2 occasions, once at the Ontario Council of the Bar and once in an interview with Mr. Hansra, you promised to engage in constructive dialogue to address this issue. Despite some initial consultation with and meeting with the Canadian Sikh Association, there is still not a tangible work plan. The Canadian Sikh Association has suggested an all-party meeting to develop a joint legislative agenda to address these issues. What specific steps will your government take to grant turban Sikhs in Ontario the right to ride a motorcycle?
It's a good question. It's something we've talked about before. First of all, I'm not in favor of an all-party. If a private member bill would be introduced, that's one thing. An all-party resolution, that's another thing. But in terms of the leadership coming together on this issue, that's not something that I would support. I think it's something that we need to develop policies on our own. I think it's important that we continue to have a conversation about this. It's no secret that there are some real safety concerns that we need to address. And I also think that it's important for us to evolve our own approach that is suited to our province. For example, the Supreme Court of Canada has spoken on the issue of Kirpans. Well, we recently had the Toronto court system said, well, you know what? As far as we're concerned, what works for us, it's not a problem for us to have Kirpans in our courthouses. So that was a decision made that was suited to the community in keeping what I think are our shared values and represents us at our best. On the matter of the turban, motorcycles, helmets, real safety concerns there, I think we need to continue talking about what does the public interest expect of us in these circumstances. I know there's no legal obligation. We're not mandated by law, by the Supreme Court of Canada, the Charter of Rights, but I think we have to have the conversation nonetheless.
So I think it's actually the gentleman beside you, Mr. Hanks, who's next to me.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mcginty. My question is for fees cutting $120 to $60 specialist doctor. They're planning to move to other provinces and canceling the surgery. Do you think it's not going to affect the healthcare system in coming days? Possible to find some solution?
I'm convinced that the best solutions are always found through talking. I don't know if you've heard me say this before, but the best advice I ever got, political advice I ever got, was from my mother on my wedding day. She said, whatever happens, keep talking. Right? Keep talking to your wife. Keep talking to the doctors. Keep talking to the teachers. Keep talking to the Sikh community. Keep talking to Ontarians at large. It's very important as the foundation for progress. So, we're saying to our partners, the doctors, we've accomplished so much by working together. We've got, I forget how many more Ontarians now have access to a family doctor. Brad, is it? 1.2 million more now have access to a family doctor. We used to have the longest wait times in Canada for surgeries. Now we have the shortest wait times in Canada for surgeries. What we're saying to doctors is, in order for us to invest more in reduced wait times and to expand home care, where a nurse comes to our home to see our parents or grandparents so they don't have to go into a long-term care home or a hospital setting, so that we can put money in there, we've got to take the money that we're paying you, and globally, that pay envelope, we want to freeze that. So we're moving some amounts within that, but overall the envelope is remaining the same. So what we're asking the doctors to do right now is, let's come back to the table. If there are real issues, real concerns, the best way for us to address those is by coming together and talking. And I have confidence that we'll be able to do that and make sure that we protect the quality of care. Our interest we need to manage our finances, but in a way that doesn't hurt health care for Ontarians, it doesn't hurt education for our kids.
So, Premier, I think down at the end of the table there, Mr. Wars.
Sir.
Premier, I'm taking you away. The question is very different. Like at times we are called the ethnic media, but like Mr. Hansra always says, we are the new mainstream media because most of our people who are minorities and immigrants read us and follow us. Would there be a chance, I know federally it's out of our reach at this point, but at least provincially, that when foreign dignitaries arrive, some of our outlets would at least be considered to be invited and taken up in personal walk with them or know with them, or we are just kept for the local press conferences, and when the foreign delegates arrive, we are just forgotten?
I was not aware that this was an issue. I'm glad that you brought that to my attention. Are you telling me that there are...
I'm not telling you, I'm asking.
No, I understand. Just by way of information, so I better understand. Are you telling me that the local press gallery that is here every day are getting information about events that you're not getting, or is it that...
Yes, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. And then I don't see why we can't ensure that we're being fair and equitable to ensure that you have access to that same information.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I think we're right here. Yeah.
Sure.
At every election, we have an issue which is very much discussed, and I think every party tries to appease to voters about foreign trained professionals. that in order to adjust foreign trained professionals into our economy, we are doing so many things. During the last election, I think you also made some announcements. How is that working out, and have you done something special for the foreign trained workers to adjust into this economy?
Well, we have done much already, and in our campaign, we made a commitment to do even more. In terms of what we have done, if I speak about doctors for a moment, for example, we have about 20% of our spaces for residency are for our international medical graduates. That's like we've created, that's about the equivalent of one full medical school. That's how big the numbers are that we're talking about here. We have a number of bridge training programs we've invested in. One of the things we talked about during the campaign, of course, is a way to ensure that foreign trained professionals receive the experience they need here to get their accreditation so they can then apply for a full-time job or start up a business. They just need a little bit more on-the-job experience in order for them to get that accreditation and then to help power the Ontario economy forward. So that's something that we have not introduced at this point in time. It's something that we will at some point in time. But right now, we're very much focused on, we're in a minority government situation. We're not getting a lot of support from the opposition these days in terms of moving bills ahead. So we'd like to get our budget passed before the summer and a few other bills that we've already introduced at this point in time so that we can get to a point in time where we can introduce further bills. The fact of the matter is, we are very close to a point now where we are entirely dependent upon immigrants to grow our workforce. And we're going to enter into a new era in the global economy where we're going to have to compete for the best immigrants. And immigrants are only going to come to Ontario and to Canada if they are assured that they can work at their highest level of training. So my vision for Ontario is to be very competitive in that regard, so that immigrants coming from any part of the world will say, my first choice, one of my first choices has got to be Ontario, because I know I can go there, I can set up my practice, my business, my trade, I can quickly earn a good living, raise my family with a sense of optimism. So that's the direction we're pursuing. Okay.
Premier, we only have time for a couple more, so I know the gentleman at the end here does.
Sir.
My question is regarding the international students. International students coming from all over the world to Ontario and other places. But some of the reason when the international student arrive in Ontario, then they find the Ontario plans to be, everybody want to come here to settle to Canada, right? Then they see Ontario plan is not that working to them. They can stay and they can find in the same job, or they can get very soon PR, Canadian immigrations or the PR card. Then they move to go to another place like Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Alberta to get settled in Canada. Why are we doing this kind of strategies? We keep the student here, then this way we can keep our economy here. Otherwise, the student moving there, the economy is going to that other provinces.
Right. You raise a very good point. Let me just tell you again another personal experience. In 1973, in my home, there were already 10 children, 2 parents, and 2 dogs. My parents invited 3 students from China to live with us. So we went from a family of 12 to a family of 15. They were foreign students. They lived with us for 6 months because they needed a place to stay. And it was the very first time that China was beginning to send students to Canada. That year they sent 9. This year they have 50,000 studying in Ontario, to see how big it's grown. We have an immigration, what are we calling it, task force? What are we calling it?
Yes, there's the immigration task force that's been formed for the strategy.
Yes. One of the things we've asked the immigration task force to look at for us is when we invite students here, and I believe in that for so many different reasons, including the economic reasons. But when we invite students here, what are we doing to make it easy for them to stay here? Should they so choose to do so? It may be they're expected to return home and to bring that skill set to grow their economy. but some may desire to stay here. And so one of the things I'm asking them to do is to look at, give us their best advice to ensure that Ontario is competitive in that regard. I know that some places, I'm not sure whether they're in Canada, but in some places around the world, if you study, and maybe the U.S. now, as soon as you get your PhD in the U.S., you get your green card or whatever the equivalent is. And some, it may be the master's, I'm not sure. But we are going to need to build this economy with highly skilled and educated people. That'll be the continuing foundation for our success. So we're asking them to look at this very idea that you've brought forward.
Thank you. Premier, I think this will have to be the last one. We'll go right here. And then.
Sorry, I'm delayed because of the parking. Okay, I have a question for the HST. You have any plan in future of reducing HST?
No, not at this point in time. We are, as you know, we've entered into a period of, let me put it this way. We had a recession in the early 1980s. We had a recession in the early 1990s. And I remember I started to practice law in the early 1980s. And I had young families getting a mortgage and paying 12, 13, 14% interest. The good news about the recession at that time is when we came out of the recession, the economy grew quickly. And the same in the 1990s, it grew quickly. This recession is different. The rate of economic growth coming out of this one is very modest. And we're now impacted by troubles in Europe, a slowdown in the U.S. economy. So our revenues are not growing as quickly as they were in the past. And we need those revenues to pay for that 30% tuition cut, to pay to expand full-day kindergarten, to pay to expand home care, to pay to hire more nurses should we have to do so, or more teachers, those kinds of things. So we're not in a position right now to reduce our revenues. Right now what we want to do is strengthen the economy so it generates more revenues.
Premier, actually, I think we're going to do one more with Mr. Hansard, because I think he had one last one, and then...
Well, I was just going to literally finish it off saying there are many other issues that we wanted to talk about, including Orange, CEO salaries, which always been an issue for NDP. And if you're going to gain majority, then head off to federal leadership.
Yeah.
Another question. So I'm just wrapping up the whole thing, and I just want to thank you from behalf of the Punjabi Press Club. And I also like to add that we would like to meet you on more frequent terms on many issues. Your office kind of shies away sometimes to give us the time. If you can also look into Brad's working habits.
Well, I'm going to say right now, you and I, we should be meeting once a year in a formal way like this. We'll see each other on other occasions, right? There will be other, but in this way, in a bit more formal way where we have you in here, I'm making a commitment that is going to drive him crazy now because he has to organize my time. But I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you directly. I appreciate the work that you do. And it's important for us to have this opportunity to meet face to face. Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time and I appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you.